The act of trying to replicate something that you've seen in the world and bring it to life through the tools that you have doesn't have to be done for any other reason than just the curiosity and the willingness to see if it's possible. Like, can you do this? And this is something that I used to think about all the time when it came to movement, like physical movement, specifically gymnastics. I would play with my little G.I. Joes, as a kid, and I would put them in like a straight body position with their arms out, and I'd put them flat on my hand, and I would have them like flip in the air. I would throw them up in the air, and I would love counting how many flips is the G.I. Joe doing, how many twists is it doing, what happens if I slightly change my hand position, and can I create from there? And then I used to think about, okay, now I see this in the gymnastics world, but what does it look like in the snowboarding, skiing world? They do these tricks, but they do them off axis. That's interesting. How to create from that place. That's also interesting. And that's just pure curiosity.
Yep.
When your creativity starts to produce some feedback, some results, all of a sudden you're performing a skill that you, let's just talk about movement or gymnastics. Let's say I figure something out with this G.I. Joe, and then I tried to replicate it, and I managed to bring it to life through my body, which is kind of the reverse of what my grandson is doing by seeing the world and then trying to bring it to life through his toys. Doing the reverse thing all of a sudden produces real life results. You win a competition, you create a new skill, your execution goes up, you earn some points, and then that gains you some sort of attention, and then that attention maybe leads to the opportunity to create a transaction of value, which is now maybe financial. And then all of a sudden you realize that your creativity can also contribute to your world and facilitate more creativity. The question is, are you able to see how the system works? Basically, avoid the distraction or not get confused by what should be informing true creativity. And I think it's curiosity to learn and express yourself and to reach further rather than the need to create a conversion or make a sale. And I mean, I want to make sales. Like, I want to have a full coaching schedule. I want to, in my sports management work, I want to close the biggest deals and be very successful there. But I don't want to have to tell you by tricking you through creative writing that is not creative, it's actually manipulative, to engage in something that I am working on that I believe could potentially be of value just to make the money, and thus, taint the whole process.
Yeah, you know what's really interesting about that? For every success story that there is that we see with the vanity metrics and maybe the reverse engineering, they keyworded their way to the top or whatever, you have the other story, which is, like a client I'm working with right now, where I watched her. She had 9,000 something on YouTube, and her editing and all this stuff, it's not anything magical. Like she's working with what she has. She does a lot of lives. She breaks down stuff like, reaction videos, things like that. All the content that I've seen her make, mind you, from 9,000 to now like 60,000 in less than, let's say, I think a month, maybe 6 weeks at most, right?
Wow.
But you're seeing it start to like really like ramp up, and you're like, well, she's not doing any of this like gaming it in some way. But there is this sync that I'm seeing between her and her audience, where now everything that she's putting out is somehow aligned with being useful to them, or them wanting like, she's reading their mind. You know what I mean? Like, oh, okay, this is the next video that they want to see. But it also is coming from a very authentic place where it just happens to be what she's talking about. And that's, I think, the magic that is a little hard to trust sometimes. Will this work out if I just put my head down and focus on creating what I want, And I think it's always exciting to see those stories where, yes, it might take longer. It's very cool to see that story where somebody purely focused with like the bare minimum tools that they have, and just now they're starting to like, let's say, level up in different ways where they can. But seeing somebody accomplish a lot with less is really inspiring, I think.
Yeah, no doubt. And there's a part of me when I allow myself to think about that, I'm kind of like, hey, how do I do that? Because right now I'm in a phase where I'm like reverse growing, right? I'm like shrinking. And one of the reasons is because the messaging that I'm sharing is slightly different than it used to be. Thus, the audience that I was serving at some point in time no longer finds value in it. Thus, there is a turnover, but it's really a regression that leads to progression. And this is maybe me now being delusional and saying that I trust the process type thing. But yeah, it's fascinating, and I wonder, is there a way of connecting one being in a purely expressive stage of development where you're just testing things out, but playing the game in a way that optimizes for the platforms that you're creating on, so that your regression can also be catapulting you forward in ways that maybe don't translate into those vanity metrics or more sales or whatever it is that you may use as your key performance indicators.